that I missed in history. In the year 1953, ironically, it is the Afrikaner students who stood up against the system in Cape Town University, and they wanted to remove the statue. At that time, there was no hashtag. It is the Afrikaner students who wanted to do that. That joke was finished last year by the majority of black people who said Rhodes must fall. We are all in agreement that he must fall. The other are for different reasons. For different reasons. Yeah, just to make this point. Rhodes funded the Anglo-Boer War, and in funding that war, he took part in the perpetration of the greatest atrocities that could happen to Africans and Afrikaners by creating the concentration camps. Those concentration camps were used with devastating result in the Second World War by Hitler. That is why it was necessary that he must fall. Later on, in that we have fees must fall. Now, everything must fall. I want to leave you with one message that as communication methods and systems evolve, let them not fall, those systems. Let them not lead to a destruction of communication, of relationships between people. Let us find a way of saying education must rise instead of falling. I thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Matsepe. My apology to have to rush you. DM, I'm going to ask you to come through. Professor Mkhize, who is the Deputy Minister of Telecommunications and Postal Services. Due to time, I won't be doing much introduction of her so that she can get into the lecture and the message be sent across. Over to you, DM.
Thank you, Chairperson. Malibongwe. Igama lamakhosikazi. Igama lamakhosikazi malibongwe. Igama lamakhosi libongwe malibongwe 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 igama lamakhosikazi malibongwe ikhosikazi malibongwe Good evening. Thank you very much, Chairperson. I'm really grateful for this wonderful evening. For me, this is very significant as we bring the month of April to the close, to be able to reflect on the life of a great woman, a giant, a heroine. When I say Malibongwe, I'm saying it from the bottom of my heart, because I'm not talking about a woman follower. I'm talking about a woman who had guts, who had the mind, who was prepared to lead at all times. But also, it's just a good way, following what the President was doing yesterday, giving awards, the national orders, to our struggle heroines, that we also reflect on such a rich and complex life like the life of Dr Ivy Matsepe-Cassaburi. Some of you will remember during her funeral what Mr. Hlengiwe Mkhize said, as at that time he was the interim president of the country. He said it's understandable why people have come to know her as Mama ICT Africa. So she saw ICT as the means of achieving the developmental goals. And at that time, I remember very well, I didn't appreciate the depth and the complex nature of her contribution and the respect she had within the continent and all other structures of Telecoms Union. But since I've started attending different structures, I've been amazed and humbled how many men and women, whenever they see a South African, they'll say, oh, you remember Mama Ivy Matsepe-Cassaburi used to bring all of us together. They used to have regular engagements because of her leadership qualities. So, Chairperson, I'm saying we are doing this as a department, not because it's routine type of work, but because it's the most appropriate honor we can give her for her intellect, her wisdom, and her leadership qualities. Before I go into what she started and what we are doing today, I really wanted to, I feel the same also. I said, I wish there was no written word by the department. I wish I could talk about two things, which whenever I think about her, I think deeply about those two things. That is discipline and ill discipline. Anyone who worked at any one point or shared life with her will know that some people used to say she's a slave driver, but what I appreciated the most was her disciplined way of doing things. She was thoughtful. She had the courage of providing leadership, but in a highly disciplined manner. So whatever she did, she wouldn't do it in a haphazard manner, but it will be true to the cause according to plan. And I think it's important to reflect on those values, because today we have institutions of higher learning which, when we look at them, you are not sure whether they are still striving for excellence. We understand there will never be sufficient resources to address questions of education, but at least the educational settings are known for discipline when it comes to academic excellence and people desiring to be the best in whatever studies they pursue. So those are some of the values which we need to talk about. And I think also when we talk about discipline and ill discipline, Liruna Bomme, Rinali, a very, very important role, not only in civil life, like our families, like how we organize the meals, go high, to bring up children, but also I think even within our own political parties, we stand for gender equality. We stand for women empowerment. We stand for women's rights. So we're really not just an add-on into the system, political system. We have a crucial, important role to play, to bring perspectives that our men might not be conscious of at the time. So ke itumela ha ke bona bomme gore re tlo bolela ka mme o mong o ile a tsamaya the same route we're in and climbed the same mountains. But she understood that if you climb the mountain, when you get on top, you must realize there are many more mountains to climb. So Liga Jenu, we still have an important role to fight for gender equality, to fight for women's rights. In all spaces where we feel that our children are still exposed to extreme forms of violence against women. I remember before Beijing, 1995, so Ivy is one of those leaders who was agitating that women of South Africa must be well represented. So she had different working groups. I was in a working group on gender-based violence. She made sure that we prepared to the point so that when we go to Beijing, we add value in terms of the program of action that will be taken. And Liga Jenu, I still think as women and men and all of us, we cannot take lightly our responsibility of ensuring that we don't talk about sexual violations in democracy under the guidance of such a special, unique constitution which has a chapter on the Bill of Rights. So the freedoms we enjoy will not really be felt by everybody as long as women do not feel safe. Coming back to really where we are, each time we go towards the budget votes, we know we struggle and say, what is new? May Ivy Matsepe-Cassaburi's track record speak for itself. We've seen how during her tenure, we were connected to the entire continent and inevitably the entire world. Some of the cables, the undersea cables, they connect us with other African countries, and sometimes they connect African countries and Europe. And it's something which today, as we were talking about broadband rollout, I'm sure connectivity in our schools and in our hospitals. But already she had started to say, as a NEPAD project, let's use technology to be connected, whether for political agenda, for education, for health, let's be connected. So the attempts and the contribution we are making today, it speaks to that vision. It is because of the involvement of people like this woman we are talking about today that South African government has always been at the forefront of creating an enabling environment for modern ICT broadband infrastructure. In 2006, while she was actively the Minister of Communications, the South African government was pivotal in the development and adoption of the Kigali Protocol. This is the protocol on policy and regulatory framework for NEPAD broadband infrastructure. Where she is today, the heavens are celebrating because the president of Rwanda now sits at the UN in the Broadband Commission. In other words, Africa is leading the world. The recently retired Secretary General of the ITU has now got an office in Rwanda. All our presidents of Africa agreed that it's okay, we can have an office in Rwanda which will connect, will fast track our connectivity plans. So again, it talks to thought leadership. May Ivy Matsepe-Cassaburi, she didn't exist. She was not mob psychology. Una shebella, where is tomorrow? Reagai, and made sure she stick to that. And so some of the achievements we are proud of, Hariko Panali, Batubabang Riblela Kazona, really we still honor and value her contribution because it's thought leadership. what is my contribution? What is my role? Is it just to clap hands and follow, or to look and think about the better tomorrow for all? So as we stand today, we have the study which was done, which shows us where we must focus in making sure that people are connected. Renali Telkom, which has a footprint everywhere, which is supposed to help us to partner with the private sector, because the NEPAD, the NDP, National Development Plan, spirit is that there are goals that we must pursue so that 2030, South Africa is not where it is today. In other words, Bomme, Basna, the iPad, the computer, but at least through a mobile phone. But sorry, ba khone hore ba create di grant tsa bona, ba check the balance tsa bona in a bank, ba khone hore ba patale electricity, ba patale metsi, ba bue le bana ba bona whether they are here or they are in Cuba or in Russia, or in China, all our friendly countries. So that's really what we are working on. Renali policy encouraging is based on what I've spoken about, but it's trying to close the gap. What else do you do so that Batubago Baska Uskar Hauli Bloemfontein, ngwana hawa kena college mo, a honora ayetse homework 24 hours, 7 days. Kauriena unali internet. Marli bona ba honor ba be connected. So Runa, as the department, what we did recently, we invited the metros to apply so that we help to add onto what they have by having the Wi-Fi hotspots. Basically, is really doing what it was been started, Gadi undersea cables. It's access to information which is online. Lipo Soyarona tomorrow will not give you a letter. Sometimes you'll go, hi, kibatao rumela message e kholo, kibatao inviter, bomme, lifazi kaufela, bate mo Bloemfontein, kietse jwang. So internet can reach the whole world within 1 minute. Aksa blela ka South Africa or Africa, I'm talking the whole world. You can access it within a second. So those are things we are looking at for the future. For the future, internet must be accessible and available everywhere. Uskaza maka for ulo crea granti ka 9 usay. So in other words, you wait 5 hours, but you should be able to check quickly online for it. When you go there, it's there. But also, Rona, as a department, we are creating awareness. There are opportunities where they can sharpen their skills. I was born before. As mothers in particular, we have to be friends to our daughters' friends. Our daughters have friends here online who invite them. Are you looking for a rich 50-year-old? If that you are the one, I can send you a ticket. You live a good lifestyle and mention a good country. Mwana abe restless. Azamai, only to find that is being invited by people who will traumatize her, sexually abuse her, and she end up disappearing and nobody knows. So those are some of the things where we say, because there are risks with connectivity. We tell our schools the same thing, that it's good to be connected, but teachers must make sure that there are technologies that are used not to allow bana khurbabe all over, bashebele everything. The future is ahead of us. One of the things we are talking about is that we need our young people who are in these universities to think about making it cheaper to communicate by getting into production. As we came here, I think this is our strategic province. There are companies which want to be involved in training to support our ICT programs, the Premier's offices, to take young people after school. Lena Dr Matsepe, I thought they'll be here to put them in a program so that when they finish, they are able to get jobs. And also to help those who are already out of school, to give them basic ICT schools and be able to take them and give them the website so that we fight unemployment using technology again. Ka technology, ngwana ha tshwanela hore a dule gae. There are opportunities for internship as well. And these are some of the discussions which we want to pursue with the Premier's office, so that we keep on bringing our companies on board to eliminate some of the problems. I would be failing haksa bleli hanyane akino blela ka di budget di ditšhelete ne ke batla fela o leboga haholo. I'm not supposed to give a vote of thank, but the guidance our department got from this province, and batho ba Free State ba rata hore ke ha AC mo a sa matleng a gotlele morago, and I really join you, because that office carried us, they guided us. We're in this institution today because that's the guidance we got. Major Waruna is here and the other leadership, as you'll hear from them, it was because of the guidance and support we got. And I hope next year things will be better. I see the green members, they will guide us as to how to do the best remarkable lecture fitting for Mayor Ivy Matsepe-Cassaburi, our mother. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's where we'll leave it. That was this year's memorial lecture in Bloemfontein, the Dr Ivy Matsepe-Cassaburi memorial lecture that was presented today by the Deputy Minister of Telecommunications and Postal Services, Professor Hlengiwe Mkhize, who spoke for quite a while about Dr Ivy Matsepe-Cassaburi, starting by saying that what she admired about Dr Cassaburi was her disciplined way of doing things, always thoughtful but very disciplined, and perhaps lessons that we could learn from her. She talked about an important subject about gender equality, and that women's rights, the battle still continues, that journey still needs to be won. And she also talked about how important the role that Dr Ivy Matsepe-Cassaburi played in terms of the ICT journey that the country is on at the moment, and that being connected was something that was very important to her. Some of the undersea cables that we see on the east, south and west coasts of Africa, she was very much a part of that journey, and connectivity was very important. She said that whilst we are on the internet and connected, care must be taken, but we must embrace that. And she says that we'll continue to honour her contribution as it represented some of the very best in thought leadership. So those were the words and the thoughts of Professor Hlengiwe Mkhize as she remembered the former Premier of the Free State, Communications Minister, and also a former chairperson of this very institution, the SABC, Dr Ivy Matsepe-Cassaburi. And that's where we'll leave it for the time being. We'll be back shortly with the headlines.